Today's episode was absolutely amazing. My biggest takeaways by far were how realtors should actually do their monthly market stats update properly so that their audience resonates with it. And the second thing that our guest talked about was accepting things that aren't serving you anymore that once were and what you should actually do about it.
Yeah, for me, I think the biggest takeaways were first, automating your business without being tech savvy. We all know I'm not tech savvy, but always look for ways to automate my business. And we got some great insight there. And then a huge one of not letting your ego make decisions for you, especially in business, and how to get your ego out of the way when making those decisions. And then there was also 4 awesome books around mindset that were recommended that you won't want to miss. See you inside.
Welcome back to Pipeline Profits. This is the podcast where we talk about all things sales and marketing for real estate agents. And today we have one of both of our favorite people on the show.
Yeah, we're super excited today. We've got an awesome guest for you because not only has this person been a super successful team leader, a super successful individual realtor, but also they are an amazing human, and they are also amazing at creating a community, creating content. And what I love most about this human is how honest they are and open about sharing what life as a realtor really looks like and the struggles day in and day out, as well as just the wins. And I think there's not many people out there that are as honest about what it means to be a realtor, and not only the good things, but the bad things that come along with it.
Yeah, absolutely. This person has had such a big and profound impact on both of us, like professionally and personally. This person is constantly striving to be better, to be a better leader, to be a better agent, to learn new things, to push the envelope. We're going to talk about AI. We're going to talk about consistency with doing market research and delivering value to the marketplace. We're going to talk about mental health in real estate. So today is going to be an absolute banger, and we could not be more honored to have our very, 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 very good friend on the show, Ara Mamourian.
Wow. Damn, I didn't know you guys liked me that
Welcome,
much.
welcome.
Oh, we love you. We don't just like you.
That was
We
an
love
incredible intro, and I have goosebumps. I appreciate those kind words. Thank you. I love you guys too. It's awesome.
They're very well deserving words, because that just encompasses who you are as a human, man. And getting to know you over these last couple of years has been an absolute pleasure. And like, I think that you have so much that you're going to bring to this show today. And I think, like, first and foremost, welcome. And we need to know, like, the story of Ara, because Ara started when you were like, what? Your late 20s, early 30s in the real estate industry?
In real estate, it'll be 16 years. Oh, actually, 16 years in like 3 weeks. It's been an interesting journey, but like, in this business, like, there's no real value to saying you've been in the business for 16 years, because some of us just kind of repeat that same first year over and over again without really learning. And I did that for a long time too. But so my career started 16 years ago. I just, working as an independent agent at a brokerage. Got lucky, had a really great mentor there. Moved me into working with condos, worked for Brad Lamb for a little while, like 3 or 4 years for Brad Lamb. And then I, foolishly decided that I was ready to open a brokerage. So I'm like, yeah, I'm going to open a real estate brokerage with only 4 years of real estate experience under my belt. Let's go. That was,
How did that go for you?
I had a great office that I was the only one at. It was it grew and it made some moves, but then I wasn't ready to be the leader I needed to be in that moment in time. I still had a lot of learning and growing to do, but it was an experience that really kind of helped me be where I am today. So there was that, and then the Spring Realty, it was called at the time. Then I ended up merging that brokerage with where I met Ryan at a brokerage called property.ca, which you might know more familiarly as the group that runs condos.ca, which is the country's largest focused condo team. So that's where I met Ryan, where he was the SVP. I became very successful as an agent there on my own, and I started to rethink what it was like to be in real estate. So that's when the Spring Spring Realty became the Spring Team, because we were no longer a brokerage. And then after about a couple of years there, Ryan and I started talking, and we ended up leaving there and doing our own thing with the Spring Team. That was in 2020, and then kind of COVID did what it did, but it kind of helped us move our business forward, because like I think a lot of us leaders really really stepped in during COVID and really like helped put some more meaning behind our businesses and like really step up for our clients. So that was actually a huge blessing in disguise, looking in hindsight. I mean, part of it was a blessing. Most of it was a flipping nightmare. But anyway, so there was that. And then so now fast forward to 2024, the Spring Team has grown from, basically 0 agents to we just hired our 13th agent here in Toronto. And we're looking to expand to other markets. Like we've got a good model that works. We've got Hamilton Spring Team going on right now, Peterborough Spring Team going on. We gave it a shot in Victoria, British Columbia. Our team structure is still there, but the team leader moved on. So we're looking to replace that team leader there and grow into other locations too. So a lot of movement over the past 16 years.
I love it, man. I have a question for you going back to the working. So solo agent, work for Brad J. Lamb, then transitioned, and you were like, okay, I want to do my own brokerage thing. One of the questions I want to ask you, because I'm seeing this more so in the marketplace now, is a lot of people wanting to start their own team or start something bigger, right? And there's a lot of people out there that it works for, but there's also a lot of people out there that just do it from the ego kind of boost. And they really got to take the step back to understand it actually wasn't the right move. And there's something that's totally fine with that, but it's really hard as a human to let that go. So what was the catalyst to get you to be comfortable to say hey, this wasn't the right move. I'm actually going to pivot and go somewhere else. And how did you check your ego at the door to get yourself in that position?
I mean, I know the answer that would be most helpful in this scenario, but that wasn't my path. I tend to not learn from my mistakes as quickly as some other people do. So I've always done these things to feed my ego. And this all comes with an extreme, amount of work on self-awareness and understanding why certain decisions are made and why I've decided to do one thing versus the other. And as I went down that path and that journey, started journaling and thinking and really, meditating with that thought, all of it always came back to ego. So a lot of the moves that I've made, a lot of the mistakes that I've made, that affect, could affect your financial future and all that stuff. All of those things came from a place of trying to look like something to somebody else. And that's why, and it's really hard to admit something like that. And it took a long time to kind of even be aware of that, because you're oh no, I've got this groundbreaking technology. That's why I'm starting a brokerage, because it's going to redefine this or redefine that. But why? So you can be something, or you can actually make a change and help people do something, right? So I was coming from it from I'm trying to be something, put me on a pedestal, way up here kind of person. And when you come from a place like that, I always wondered, how come, Emma has all this energy to just become such a killer at marketing and automations and technology and all that stuff, but I've got to struggle so hard just to do this one thing. It's not because you're smarter than me or anything, but the reasons why you're doing those things are more in line with who you are versus just aligning it with your ego. And also, it just, when you're doing that, it allows you to move through those hard moments a lot, more, not easily, but it gives you that little wind you need, that little moment of I got to just fucking finish this. I don't care. I've got to just get to the finish line. It allows you to have the energy to do stuff like that. So the way I got there was just really spending a lot of time writing down, who am I and what do I want? That's an exercise that stuck with me for a very long time. I started doing it 2 years ago, but it really stuck with me. So in the morning, I write down, who am I and what do I want? At night, I write the same thing. And sometimes it's crazy how things change from morning till night. But then when you string together 6 months of doing that, imagine the data you have in your head, or the context you have in your head about you. And then that's when decisions become easier and no's become easier and yeses become a lot easier, when it's like you're moving down a path that's aligned with like who you are and like with a specific purpose and intent, versus having a brokerage is higher or better than being an agent. So that's what I want. So when I can tell people I own a brokerage, but they don't know that it's losing like 15 grand a month, agents are quitting every other week, but like, hey, I own a brokerage, So I don't know if that answers your question, but it was really just a massive journey in self-awareness, understanding why I was doing the thing.
That answers it for sure. And it's something that I've been thinking about a lot recently too, where we get so like caught up in the tactical things of like, I want to learn this AI thing, or I want to learn automations and this, that, and the other. But like everything really does start with mindset. And so I've been doing like a similar, like, journaling activity every day too. And I just want to echo what you said, like, having that constantly top of mind does help make decisions easier, because you're like, am I making a decision in alignment with where I want to go with my life and what actually is important to me? Or am I making a decision because I think other people want to see this for me, or I think it's the right thing to do based on where I'm at in my career? And that's why I think a lot of agents right now are like, I want to start this team because it seems like the next natural progression, because I've had like some success, whatever that happens to be, as an agent, when really it's like they just do it because it seems like the next step, when it's not really the thing they want to do it at all. They don't have clarity around what it is that they want to do.
And listen, after you even do whatever exercise you do to get that clarity that you need, and you still do that thing, that's the next step, that's okay too. It's just, how long are you going to dig into the wrong thing before you say, okay, I did it, I tried it, let's move on to something else. Like, how long are you going to keep that going? And for me, it was too long. It was too long because I didn't want to have difficult conversations. It was too long because, oh yeah, I'm going to make some changes, and then somebody does a deal, and all of a sudden the bank account fills up a little bit, and then it's like, oh, you know what? No, I've got this figured out. Let me just keep going. So it's just knowing when to call it a day and move on to something else. Because I think one of the reasons I'm successful today is because I've said yes to so many things and tried so many things. So I have actual experience with things. Mind you, I wouldn't recommend that path. I'd recommend definitely a lot more intention with the things that you do. But there is a silver lining in that. Like, I know a lot of things because of all of the insane mistakes I've made multiple times. That's not a lesson. Don't do that.
What would, with jumping straight from agent to brokerage owner, what do you think the biggest lesson that you learned in running a brokerage so early in your career? What lesson do you think had like the deepest effect on who you are as a business person today, and like how has that transitioned to making you a better team leader?
That's actually a really good question. And the main lesson, how do I phrase this? It's, if you're a member of real estate Facebook groups and things like that, you always like see some of these similar questions from people that are looking to start to do something like that. And it's always starting with the wrong questions. And it's you can tell, it's like almost when you're speaking to a client and you've got commission breath, that phrase where you can tell somebody is just trying to do something to get something done. Same thing there. Like, you shouldn't be talking about when should I have meetings. You shouldn't be talking about like how many agents should I have. You shouldn't be talking about like all of the details that come with a proper team plan down the road. You should be firstly talking about, which I didn't do, what am I actually giving to the real estate community with this brokerage? Like, what is it that's going to make somebody say, yeah, I want to work with the spring team? Like, what is that thing? For us, there are a number of different reasons for that. So that's why we're so, and there's also a way that people receive that information. It's like, are you just saying you're that thing, or are you actually being that thing? So very few people respond to like a value proposition, so to speak. Like, imagine if you went to your website right now and you opened your like About Us page, which inevitably has some sort of like vision statement, mission statement, or whatever. Imagine somebody asked you what you do and you just read that to them, but like you just talk to them like that. Like, it's not real. Like, none of that stuff is real. Like, nobody's going to work for you because you have a killer vision statement or whatever. But if you're living your core values, and for us, it's, nothing is left unsaid. The idea that competition is a myth and, collaboration is really where it's at. Like all of these core values is what we put out there in the world. So when you're starting a team, when you're starting a brokerage, you look at the way your life is, how are you living, how are you transacting, how are you doing business today, and what is it that you think you can pass on to another agent? Is it, do you have some sort of special skill in, technology and in some sort of market reporting or whatever it is? You can tell people that you're great at all these things, but you just have to start a team if that's what you want to do. Understand that and it's just you, not even thinking about other agents. You've got to start a team. You've got to find out how you're going to add value to this group of people you're trying to build and live that life and post content based on that life and post content with you showing the culture of your team, of your life. And then what happens is like you get a lot of inbound inquiries that way versus, hiring an ISA that calls an agent database and says, hey, have you heard about the spring team? Are you interested in working for the spring team? We can add a lot of value to blah, blah, blah. Like that stuff, I think times are changing. Consumer habits are changing. Agents' habits are changing. So they're going to want to really see somebody embedded in their business, and they want to see how they do business. They want to see that on the socials before they're even touching base with you. So I don't know if there's not a specific answer, but like if you're starting a team, you got to ask yourself again, why am I starting this? And like, what am I really bringing to the table? And like, again, who am I? And then live that, talk about that, make content about that. When you're networking, make sure that's a thing that's coming out of you at all times. And then people will ultimately be either attracted to that or repelled by that. And that's the goal. Like if you're creating something and you're like, oh, I don't know if I should say that because it might alienate that person, or I don't know if I should say that because so-and-so might not like that, you're already starting off on the wrong foot. Like this is an attract and repel game. And your goal is to find people like you, especially if you're a team leader. If you're opening a brokerage, that's a bit of a different scenario. And I really don't want to speak to that because I don't believe that's, where I don't have any value there. But in terms of the team, the reason why we're growing, aside from having amazing support in our community at Real, the reason why we're growing is because we're able to now put ourselves out there in a way that actually is us. And it attracts some, repels others. But the kinds of people that are sitting down in front of me right now are the ones that I really want to spend some time with. And I've been working on that for a really long time. So it's really nice to see people like us coming here. And once you've done that, then you've got this culture to protect on your team. So when the agents on your team see you protecting that culture by like turning down potential candidates, involving them in the process and things like that, that just further strengthens your bond. And then of course, the thing that we all forget about is to talk about those things, put those things out there. Like, so people, that's the close, right? We always forget to like, oh, but closing is so salesy and douchey. No, it's not. It's part of what we do as salespeople in all aspects. And I don't think people understand what closing is. Closing is just making a recommendation after you build some rapport.
Yeah, I love that, man. And I love that you had mentioned like the journey, whether it's a team member that comes to your team or it's a buyer or seller that comes to you, the journey to work with a brand or to work with a company is drastically different in 2024 than it probably even was in 2015, 2017. And this is something that like Ryan and I have been discussing a lot as we go through some changes even internally with SalesGenius, is how do we we have to build trust first. And I'm not saying the ISA thing doesn't work. Like we've hired ISAs and whatnot, but it's not nearly as effective in today's market as it used to be because there is no trust there. And I would like encourage anybody that listens to this to look at how you've engaged with businesses in the last 12 months. And if you've worked with anybody, how did you get in contact with them? It's usually that you've got some type of content and some type of trust built on the front end with that person to kind of know them. And then you come into their ecosystem after you already know who they are. Like, ask yourself, have I ever picked up a cold call and done a deal with somebody in the last 12 months? And if the answer to that is no, then we've got to restructure the way that we do business to build trust on the front end. And so that leads me to transition into the next thing that you've been really consistent and done really well, which is market reporting. And that's a really great way to be able to build trust and build authority with your audience. So can you talk to us a little bit about how long you've been doing the market reporting and like how your system maybe has changed from the first time that you've done it to now? Because I'm sure you've got it dialed in at this point.
I mean, I haven't done it in a little bit, to be honest with you, but it's good timing that we're talking about this. So I'm sure you can all relate to this, or maybe I'm the only one, but I doubt that I am. But, you know, because we know so much, because we're so engaged as great realtors, we love to, like, when somebody asks us a real estate question, like, my answers are spewing out in rainbow, all over little Reddit, thinking, I'm fucking smart right now, and this person's just sitting there like, okay. So I'm talking about that specifically because it's what sparked my interest in like getting deeper and more knowledgeable about doing market reports more effectively, because I was obsessed with the idea of like, how can I best answer the how's the market question? And I find that, you know, often I'm guilty as charged here too, but even today, like nobody's interested in your monthly market stats. That's just a regurgitation of what your office puts out there, right? Like the idea is like, how can I actually be helpful? Like that's been the theme of what we've been talking about for the past however many minutes. Like, let's get some real meaning and intent behind the things that we're doing. Otherwise, we're just going through the motions, and it makes no freaking sense. Like when I hear an agent come to me and tell me that they're so busy, they don't have time to do X, Y, and Z. We look at their schedule and they're spending like 6 hours editing an Instagram reel or a YouTube video or something like that. Like it's just not the best use of your time. And I don't even know what the hell I was talking about. I went off on a total tangent. But the
market stats.
No, I know. I was relating that to something, and I completely went off on a tangent. But so I was obsessed with the idea of answering the how's the market question, and I just wasn't finding a way to answer it properly. And then I was just, as I dug into it, just data dumping on answering the how's the market question. And I'm like, okay, I got to find a way to focus this better. So in our market, I don't know where you're watching this from, but like in our market in Toronto, we get monthly stats from our real estate board that come out. That's fairly generalization of like the 416 or the GTA, a fairly broad area. And I found too many people were focused on those broad data points and painting the entire market with the same brush. But if you know anything about Toronto, you know that we're a city of like micro communities that respond very differently to market changes. You know, in 2008, when the entire world was melting down, Toronto just took a chill and maybe adjusted 5% and then popped off again right after. Like we respond very, very differently to global things like that. So anyway, to learn a ton about that. And I just started writing it. And I started writing and writing and writing. But then I realized that I needed to create my own data. So if you're doing your market reports, you've got to understand, number one, where are your clients? Like who are your clients? Where do they work? Where do they live? And then outline those neighborhoods. And if you're in your MLS and you have the ability to draw like custom shapes and stuff like that, you've got to create your own search areas to create your own market reports for your people. You're not Benjamin Tall or like some massive celebrity economist. Nobody cares about your market reports. So the moment that I stopped making market information for everyone and just started making market information for my clients, then that's when things changed and I was able to be more consistent with it, because now it mattered to me and it mattered to other people, and the people being those that have already trusted us with their business. So I identified 5 major neighborhoods. I created, custom searches in our MLS, and I just started pulling the data every single week, writing a market report and doing a YouTube video. And I did it for 200 weeks in a row. And I'm really proud of that. That was like a really long time, from March of 2020 until just before Christmas this year is when I stopped doing it. And I stopped doing it because it lost its meaning for me in that way, in the way that it was coming out. So in order and the message wasn't being received in the same way, because maybe I was, because there was less meaning, I wasn't as, intentional about it, and it wasn't as good. So, things faded a little bit, and you shouldn't be doing something long-term like that if you're not excited about it. So, I stopped, and I've spent the past month or so just like, revisiting how I'm going to do it. Now I have a lot more automation in place to create that information. So it takes less time for me to do the nitty gritty and the work and all that stuff. So now I can just focus on the actual like delivery of this information. So the consistency didn't come from like a magical place. I've been a horribly inconsistent person in my past life, but it's something that I wanted to improve. And the moment you decide that you want to improve something, you immediately become better at that thing. Every day, you're going to get better and better and better and better. Your first video is going to suck, and you're going to have to be okay with that. Your second one's maybe going to be a little better. Maybe it'll be worse. Maybe nobody will read it. Maybe your mom will even hate it. Who cares? You're just going to keep doing it every single week because people will respect the grind, the consistency, because that likely will show up when they hire you as your buyer, as their buyer agent or their listing agent. So you're not just sharing market information. You're sharing your consistency, you're sharing parts of your brain, and you're giving yourself an opportunity to answer the how's the market question by legit sending somebody a link sometimes, if that's how it comes in. Like, how many times are you asked the same question over and over again in real estate? Like, a lot. So save time. Let's create some content and send it out. And then what I learned from you, Emma, is to, if shit's not working, let's look at it, let's measure it, and let's see what we can change and test stuff. Like, I've been super lazy in the past with testing things when it comes to like ads, when it comes to market reports, when it comes to whatever, because it took so much energy for me to do that thing. The idea of doing 3 or 4 versions of that thing just to see what works best was killing me. So I just never did it. But now I've made the time for that sort of thing. So those are all the things that help, that kind of gamifying it a little bit to help me stay consistent with it.
I want to ask you something about testing, because I've struggled with this in the past too, and I feel like recently, I don't know what has happened in my brain, but I've just realized like, what you just said is like the idea of me having to create 3 or 4 of these things is killing me, taking into consideration how much effort it took me to create the first one. But have you realized that just testing very small things, not the entire thing, is actually totally? But when did that happen for you? Because I did it. I did the copy and paste, duplicate the entire thing, and it took me fucking forever, for so long. And then I finally realized, actually, maybe it's just the subject line, and it's not the actual video.
You know what I realized? When I realized this, I had this. So I've been blowing a ton of money on ads at the time. And I was just getting so frustrated because I thought I was doing it really good, because ego.
Yeah.
And I was just like, this ad should be working. I've seen other ads. This ad's amazing. So I'm like, talk to a friend of mine who's in marketing. I'm like, hey, dude, can you just have a look at this ad and tell me what's wrong with it? Because I think it's pretty amazing. Like, I spent a lot of time on it. He looks at it. He's like, it doesn't say that something's for sale anywhere. You just, it's like there's this amazing ad. So basically what you just said was like the first few words of the ad were just some sort of like grandstanding real estate BS about boasting this and gleaming that. And it was not effective. So when he said that to me, I was like, Jesus Christ, I need to stop complicating this stuff and really get simple. Let me test something. Let me just put in bold letters, for sale, amazing condo, affordable. Let me do one, take the word affordable out. It's little things like that. But it just took me that moment when that client's like, dude, it doesn't even say for sale anywhere.
I know. It's like, it's amazing, honestly. Like, marketing is, and Ryan, I feel like you've been getting like really good at marketing too on his side. And like, I can even like see his little test that he's making. And like, we've just spent so much time creating. We're amazing at creating shit, but we're not the best at like optimizing shit sometimes. And sometimes it's just that one little tweak. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So like I was just and agents do this all the time. People do this as humans do this all the time. We unnecessarily complicate really basic situations that just need a moment of calmness and clarity to figure out. It's that like reality.
I think we overcomplicate them because we know so much. Like, so much about real estate. You know much about what you're selling that you take for granted that everyone knows just as much as you, and they don't. And I think like that's one realization, even in coaching that I have. I'm like, oh, I shouldn't talk about this today because everyone already knows this. And then I talk about it and they're like, minds are blown. And I'm like, oh, so you didn't know this. And I just made this assumption. right? And I think we do that as marketers. We know the product so well, or we know what we're selling so well, or we know the thing that we're advertising so well. We make all of these assumptions. And then the assumptions are what is leading to the ad not working, because we made the assumption, we didn't put the relevant information, and now that didn't work. And I think what worked really well about your market report is you made the assumption that everyone knew nothing about the areas that you talked about. And so you made it really easy for them to understand.
Well, I appreciate you noticing that. That was definitely a key component of the market report. Easy to understand. It was like literally the basics.
And I think that's what was great about it, is that you quickly got that, like, how do I make it super easy for people to understand the 5 areas that I care about in Toronto and why they're different than everywhere else? And that's the piece that everyone else misses. So many realtors take the report that comes out that is for realtors who know more than the consumer and regurgitate what was put out for realtors who know about real estate on a different level. And I think, having that realization in your marketing has made your marketing better, as you just said, and being able to test things and saying, like, hey, how dumb do I have to be to make this work? And dumbing yourself down. And once again, it's almost going back to the, hey, I got to get my ego out of the way, because my ego is affecting how I'm delivering information to other people, because I think I'm smart, and I'm assuming everyone else is as smart as I think I am. And that's where a mistake often happens. So what I want to hear more about, though, like what I'm really intrigued about with you saying all of that, and like being honest that the market report, the way you were doing it, just wasn't working for you anymore. It wasn't getting you the results that you wanted, was that you were spending too much time on it and you wanted to figure out how to automate it. Yeah. So I'm going to ask you, I know you're always at the forefront of technology, or like to attempt to be, and you're learning about a lot of things all the time, which is great. Like, no, like if there's something new out there, and this is what I love about Ara, is like, if there's something new out there, he's going to learn about it, and he's going to learn more than most people will, which is awesome. So he's always like this breadth of knowledge, whatever new is out there.
I've probably also
what made you?
Yeah.
So Ara spent the money, and you want to know what the results are like.
You got something to sell? Sell it to me.
So what made you realize that the market report that a lot of people loved a lot? I know when you stopped doing it, a lot of people ask me, hey, where's Ara's market report? Like, what's going on? What made you decide or realize that it wasn't working for you anymore? And how have you realized you can leverage automation to do it better itself? And then what other ways are you looking at leveraging automations in your business to grow the spring team and make it more effective, so that you can expand geographically like you have been able to over the past 12 months?
So, I mean, there's a whole full day conversation in there, but so here's an interesting thing. When I stopped doing the market report, I stopped doing it, number one, because it wasn't filling my bucket anymore, which is a total selfish reason, but I'm okay with that, and you should be okay with that too. And number two, I wasn't getting the feedback from the audience that I was used to, and I wasn't getting the engagement that I was used to. So based on those two things, I'm like, okay, I still want to do this because I think it's valuable, but I feel like I need to change up how it is. So I just stopped. But then a week after I stopped, not a single person asked me, hey, I missed the report this week. Where is it? Nobody said it. And I was like, you know what? This report was shit. Nobody wanted it. Good decision I made. 3 weeks later, the team ended up with 2 listings, 3 buyers, and like 15 emails from people saying, hey, where's the market report? And the lesson there for me is that just because people aren't actively engaging with the content is not a real metric that defines anything. I might have, maybe if going back, I might have gone down the road of maybe asking the database, like, hey, noticing we're not getting enough responses. What's going on? You want me to change something? Like that's that human element in marketing that I think a lot of people miss and are too afraid to do. So that's an email that's going out on Wednesday. Today's Tuesday, so tomorrow morning, just to the database, just be like, hey, like it's been a while, and I'm working on something new, but just to make sure it's in line with what you guys want. What do you want? And I feel like that's going to be a great way to start the conversation again. But there's way more to the question than that. So that's kind of when I realized I stopped. But then I really got great feedback later, and we actually got some good business later. So I'm like, okay, I've lost some momentum here. Let's keep going with it. And then what I did was, let's look at what part of the market report was causing me the biggest problem. I can create the market report, like the actual reporting, like the copy, help people understand the data. That's my wheelhouse. I'm really good at that. But then I also have to like create the MailChimp thing and like come up with a headline, like a Canva, go to like create the YouTube thumbnail. I'm like right now, please. So I can't do that anymore. Like honestly, it was killing my soul. Okay, it was just killing me. So I'm like, I got to find a way to fix this. So we have great, of VAs on our team. We have a full-time operations person on our team. I'm like, look, I need some help here. Where can you guys step in? So I figured out a way for our VAs to be pulling the data from the MLS for us. And then because I wanted to be more intentional, higher quality with the video, I found somebody who can effectively, help me do some, editing and without breaking the bank, using various tools through Fiverr and other good resources for that. So I essentially put together a team of people from 3 sources, one being internal, 2 being external, one of those 2 being Fiverr. And the other one is a similar type of service. So now I have people that are able to get me to the point where all I have to do is look at the numbers and then create the actual market copy, and everything else will be done. I've eliminated that stress from my life so that I can really start to get excited about the reporting again. And then looking deep, whenever something's not working for me now, I'm like, okay, this thing is a whole thing. Is it just part of it that's not working, or is it the whole thing that's not working? And like, where's my soul dying a little bit in this process? So let's look at that and let's try and eliminate those things. That's a really simple, basic way to answer that question. It's like, what's killing you on the inside a little bit? Who else can do that thing? What are you really good at? Let's lean in on what that is. And I know, Emma, you can relate. Ryan, you can relate. Like, you guys are working within that zone of genius right now, and you can see it. Like, you guys are more excited about everything you're doing.
Oh man, I actually think that like that is what becoming a better business person or business owner is. Like at its core is identifying the things that like light you up, that you're happy to do. And at one point in time, it probably was the entire process. And then you realize the process is effective, but slowly over time, these little things that used to excite me are killing me. And there's nothing wrong with that. And there's going to be somebody out there that is happy to do the thumbnails. Like that's the thing that's lighting them up right now. And I think often we think the words like, you and I like love automations, and people think like, oh, automations are like these sexy like tools where, all these tech things fucking fit together. And it's like, well, how about just on like the basics? If you're not a tech person, why don't you just write out what the workflow is or the system? And I don't give a shit if it's like digitized or connected at all in that capacity. Why don't you look at the steps that need to happen and how do you automate some of those steps through potentially other humans like Fiverr, etc. So I love the fact that you answered that question without even going directly to tech, because most people that listen to this or watch this, however you're consuming it, are going to be like, I'm not super techie. And it's like, you don't have to be techie to automate your systems. You have to be intentional, which goes back to the beginning of this conversation about what that system looks like and who can help you accomplish the end result.
True. And another thing that people do that a lot in my life, and I get extremely like activated when I see other people do it now, is they put themselves in this box where they've told themselves they can't do this one thing, or they're not like good at this one thing. It's a problem, and it's a problem for me for a long time. Like, oh, I'm not good at math. I'm not good at whatever. I'm not good with technology. Yeah, you're not good because you always tell yourself that. You've never done anything to be good at it. So like, like what do you say about that? Like, So do you want to get better at that? Cool. Here's a masterclass or something. Get started. Like it's just the intention not there.
Like I don't know how to walk. And it's like, well, fuck. Like, at one point in time, you didn't know how to walk. You're just like, oh,
No.
yeah, I don't walk because I just don't know how to do it.
But Emma, tech is different. Like I didn't go to school and I was born in a time when there was no technology. So like it's different, Emma. No, it's not. And I'll tell you one thing. Like you're not special and everybody else has the same kind of challenges. Some people are just more excited about other things. They're able to go further with that thing than you. And you got to be cool with that. Doesn't mean you're dumb, doesn't mean you don't know anything. You just have to figure out how you're smart and lean in on that place that you're, that fills your bucket. But technology is important though, and understanding technology is important. So you no longer have the luxury, or I guess not luxury is not the right word, but like the cop out, the whatever the word is of saying I'm not good. If you want to start a team, if you want to be a leader, you don't have the option to say I'm not good at that thing. Oh, I can just pay somebody else to do it. Believe me, I've done that for many years, thinking other people are going to solve my problems. All they did was take my money and left me with this stuff that I don't know what to do with. So it's true. Like I have hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of products, courses, things on this very computer right now. And how many of them have I been through? Like 2. But those 2 helped me do all of the things that oh, look at that.
It loved
it. Okay. Those
celebrate.
Help me do all the things that I'm doing today. And so to get better at technology, I decided that I wanted to learn more about technology. And guess what? If you want to learn how to hem your pants or learn about technology, there's a YouTube video for that. So I just started following step-by-step YouTube videos on things that I wanted to get better at. And when it comes to like complicated automations and stuff like that, I could get it to a point where it was not functional, but at least 60%. And then I go to Fiverr and pay somebody $40 to finish that automation for me or something. Like, done.
100%.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, cool, your friend's a technology person, they can help you. Yeah, they're going to charge you like 10 grand to do it. Like, you'll get there. You can support your friend eventually, but right now it's Fiverr time. So, like, get in there and get some things done.
It's Fiverr time. I like that. I think I might have to use that saying. It's Fiverr time, baby.
It's Fiverr time somewhere.
I love that, man. That's awesome. No, this is...
So we've...
Go ahead, man.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so, one of the things I loved with what you said about the market report is you almost did old Ara and just abandoned the whole thing because it wasn't working.
Yeah.
But instead now you've realized like, hey, it's not I need to abandon everything. It's just I need to make a small change or a small pivot. What do you think has helped with your, growth in having that mindset of, because I know I think everyone with ADHD can be very reactionary, and I'm the same way. And like a lot of times if something's not exactly the way I want it to be, I'm like, fuck it, scrap the whole thing instead of like figuring out, hey, how can I make this work and still do the pieces that I'm great at or I'm happy with or make small changes? What do you think made you come to the realization that you had to change your mindset around that instead of just like throwing your arms up and giving up on things?
I'll be super open and honest about this. Therapy. It was
Right.
a big part of my journey, man. And I don't want to dwell on that, like dig into that as like a negative thing. Cause yeah, sure. It came from a negative place for me, but the amount of self-awareness that I gained going to therapy, seeing a clinical psychologist, a psychiatrist, outside, like there's a time and place for the coaching world, and there's a lot of help in the coaching world. And I'm not talking about your real estate sales coaching. I'm talking about, life coaching that tends to say that it replaces proper therapy sometimes. And it's really, really difficult. And it's not, I don't want to paint the whole coaching industry with the same brush. It's not, because some of them are fantastic. And my wife and I see a relationship coach, not a therapist, and it's helped us amazingly, get through a lot of great things and be super happy together. But that's caused a lot of work. So for that, coaching works. But really, therapy helped me look back at the stories that I was telling myself and really edit those stories to make them more aligned with reality. And to make that maybe make sense a little bit more, it's all the failures that I had in my past. I attached the blame to somebody else for those failures without really being super conscious and owning the fact that my actions and my reactions created that situation. Sure, somebody else may not have acted ideally in those scenarios, but it was still me that did that. So once I took extreme ownership of those things, it allowed me to really analyze those scenarios better, where in the past I would just close the book on it as a failure and move on, tell myself that I'm not meant to be successful at this, because I don't have a university degree, or, insert whatever other excuse you want to in that scenario. So once I stopped making excuses and literally owned every single thing that I did, it just allowed me to look at things with a more analytical eye, with less emotion. And the most important thing, if something wasn't working, I asked the people that it wasn't working for. And like with the market report, I would ask, I didn't ask, I'm asking, the database question goes out tomorrow, but I found that because I've always wanted to present as that person that knew everything and didn't want to show any weakness by asking questions, I never asked any questions. So my growth just stopped at a certain point. And that was the problem with opening a brokerage so early in my career, is I was supposed to be the guy that knew everything. So if I was out there in public asking questions, why would anybody come join my brokerage? I'm supposed to know things. But understanding that is not necessarily the case was a big eye opener for me. And just to wrap that all up, the way that I deal with these things now, I used to think of problems as like things that happened to me, or failures as things that happened to me. But that's such an insanely, victim mindset that I cannot even stand I can't stand the idea of it so much that I can't believe I was that for so long. And when I see it in other people, I just want to shake it out of them. But being involved in therapy, if you haven't, is a game changer for understanding your wiring. And then I know I had another thought, but I completely forgot it. So here we are. So the last thing, Ryan, when you said ADHD, and there might be some wiring you're not sure of. You might have ADHD, you might have other things. I don't know. There might be other things going on with you that, with the right, potentially medication or not, with the right, treatment plan, whatever, a lot of these hard things that you find super impossible today can become a lot easier for you down the road. But self-awareness is key to that.
So I want to go full circle to the beginning of this conversation and understand, because it wasn't like, okay, I went to one therapy session and I woke up and all of my, problems were resolved. This is a work in progress to go from having this mindset to shifting over here and taking extreme ownership and understanding the way that you, react to certain situations, et cetera, et cetera. And so I know we talked about journaling at the beginning. Was journaling a part of that journey so that you could go back and reflect on your thoughts to kind of get to this point? Like, how long did it take you to become this new, upgraded version of yourself? And what was the process internally without therapy to kind of get there?
So I never review anything that I write. I never review it. If this notebook, when it's done, I'll never open it again. It's really more. Yeah, I don't go back to those things, because for me, when I go back and I potentially go over some negativity, perhaps I tend to get consumed by that sort of thing. So knowing myself, I just prefer to continuously move forward, because I've done so many things to hold myself back in the past that I just feel like I need to create the momentum in every way, shape, or form. This is just more of a symbolism thing than anything else. It's more of just living that thought versus if I go back, nothing's going to happen. But it doesn't work for me. So writing it down just helped me be more aware of certain situations that I would distract myself to forget about before. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I never throughout my entire life bothered to analyze any scenario or situation. I don't know if that sounds real to you, but I couldn't tell you why in a meaningful way why I felt a certain way, or I just never thought internally about things. I was always worried about how to present so this person likes me, or this person, there's no conflict or whatever. But it was never really understanding, okay, well, this happened, why? What did I say? What did they say? What was the scenario? Did I really cause this problem? I never really analyzed things like that and took the time to write it down and think about it. It's that absolute intention, the highest possible level of intention behind things. So in the past, something would happen. I would get heated. I would get emotional. I would find a reason why it didn't work out. I'd blame myself. I'd blame this other person and never really grow or move on or understand really why. I would just be like, oh, this happened to me. I'm not meant to be whatever, and I'd move on. But then I really just spent the time to sit with whatever it is that's happening and think of it as, we get paid a lot of money to do what we do. And sure, it's nice to have easy deals sometimes. But when problems come, when you get sideswiped by shit in life, in deals, in your life or wherever, like these are opportunities for you to problem solve and grow and move on. So I just would treat those moments and try to get rid of them as quick as possible without actually analyzing and learning them. So the journaling helped me be more thoughtful about, my thought, like be more thoughtful about my thought. It's kind of like the allow myself to introduce myself from Austin Powers there. It's to be more thoughtful about my thought and be more intentional about what I want certain outcomes to be. So all of that worked because I paid more attention to it. I focused on it for longer than I've ever had before. And then when I couldn't come up with a solution or I still felt a certain way about it, I tapped a professional to help me talk through certain things. And then and all of those things just came together. And then, life's just kind of like this, right? We have our moments where things are high, things are low. And in this business, I think that a lot of coaches misrepresent. Like, you're never really going to, I'm not talking about you guys, but like a lot of people that try to get you to like a certain level of income or whatever. And you're, always saying, well, your income should be like, we're trying to eliminate the roller coaster in your income. In real estate, you can't really control that outcome. Those deals may come, they may not. As long as your daily behaviors are consistent, then those deals will come. But you can't attach your worth to that outcome. So like, I don't believe it's impossible to get rid of that roller coaster in your financial world, but it is possible to get rid of that roller coaster in your emotional and your insides world. And I think that's where it's most important to focus all of the energy, is to balance your brain so you can handle those situations that normally would throw you off with much more grace and skill, and intention. And lastly, just to kind of put a bow on that, I guess, is just to like understand that you don't have to solve people's problems in the moment they come to you with them. You don't have to solve your own problems in the moment they arrive. The saying, silence is golden. Sit with that shit. Like, think about it. If a client asks you something and it gets you like, you don't know the answer, or if there's a problem that presents on closing, whatever, don't get caught up in the moment of like all of that anxiousness and anxiety. It's like the first thing that really helpful to do with yourself or this other person, just acknowledge the fact that whatever's happening just sucks. It's okay to acknowledge that something sucks. It's fine. But that also creates a lot of comfort in that scenario. But then knowing, like Mr. Hal Elrod of the Miracle Morning and Miracle Equation tells you, the guy got over being diagnosed with terminal cancer in 5 minutes and moved on with his life. Like, this guy used it at the highest possible level. But like, take a moment, feel it, let it settle, put together some sort of game plan in your head, and then move forward intentionally. Like, it's just gold, that whole scenario. And if a client says something, sit there in silence for a second. Let me think about that for a second. You know what? I can get a better answer for you tomorrow. I know exactly who to call. Like, these things are okay. When you do these things, like, you stop trying to be everybody's hero is what I'm saying. You can be a conduit to the answers, or you can be the answers, but you're not going to be either until you just calm the fuck down and understand really what you're dealing with wholly here before you just start going down in this one narrow lane,
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Especially in our industry, we feel the sense of constant obligation to have an immediate answer. And so when we don't, what I'll find is like agents just don't say anything at all. And I think what you just said is so impactful for people. It's like, you don't have to have the answer right away, but you have to at least acknowledge. It can't just be like you answer fully or you ghost. Most of the time, it's let me acknowledge and give you a time frame for when I'll get back to you. And like, most people are cool. Like, that's what I've realized in life is like, most people are cool as long as you communicate effectively with them and give them some type of expectation. And I think in our businesses, we often just don't do that correctly. It's either I need to give you 100% or I give you nothing at all. And I leave like this open loop of like, when am I going to hear back from this person? When really what I should just do is take the time to acknowledge that like, I have seen you, I have heard you, I understand what you're looking for, and I'll get back to you at this time. And we just don't have a good framework for that. So I'm really happy that you brought that up. I want to ask you, because we got 5 minutes left. You mentioned Hal Elrod, the Miracle Morning. We've talked a little bit about journaling. We talked a little bit about coaching. Are there any books, podcasts that you listen to, YouTube, videos? Like, is there anything out there from a resource perspective that you're dialed in on and you think is very helpful to share with the audience?
I mean, I can say the usuals. Ryan already knows what I'm going to say probably, but listen, I'll give you my top 3, 4, and then I'll tell you about a book that nobody's ever read, but I love it. I don't even think
I like that from a marketing perspective. I like that.
I don't even loop. Number 3.
Everybody's on the edge of their seat.
Wait till you hear what number 4 is all about. So my books, not in any specific order, but I guess ish. Atomic Habits, James Clear. Really tough to argue with that book. Is a pretty strong, whatever. So Atomic Habits. Then we've got Jim Quick, Limitless. If you do own Jim Quick's book Limitless, he just actually released a updated version with some comments on AI and stuff like that, which is really good. So I just started reading that. So we got Jim Quick, and then we've got Hal Elrod, The Miracle Equation. The Miracle Morning is his routine, but The Miracle Equation is the book that I really love. And then, I guess I'll just go to The Outlier because there's 3 or 4 more I can mention. But The Outlier is written by a former professional poker player called Annie Duke. And Annie Duke wrote this book called, oh my God, I can't remember the title.
Thinking in Bets.
No.
Not that one?
Not that one, no. It's called, it's either called How to Make Decisions or, How to Make Decisions. And the term that I use often from that book, so correct me if I'm wrong if you're looking it up. I've read this book 6 times. I can't remember the title right now.
How to Decide?
How to Decide, that's it. It was close. How to Make Decisions, How to Decide, whatever. Anyway, so the main word in this book that really stuck with me, and I use this word a lot, and I sometimes use it with clients too, is resulting. The word resulting. A lot of people will decide whether they've made a good or bad decision based on the result. That is a horrible way to conduct yourself because you can never control the result. The only thing you can control, what do I have in front of me right now? And I can base my decision on what I have in front of me right now. Therefore, it's impossible to make a bad decision. So despite how it works out, if it works out in your favor, cool. But if it doesn't work out, it's still likely a good decision unless you missed something. Then that's a whole different scenario altogether, right? But if you're making a decision based on the information you have in front of you right now and you fully researched it, put it into context, and then the decision came from that, how can that be a bad decision? So I just became a lot more comfortable around certain losses that I might have taken or have taken. I'm like, okay, well, where did I make this decision from? If it was an ego thing, whatever, that was one road. But sometimes I made the right decision. It just didn't work out the way it was supposed to 99% of the time. So having a lot of reduced anxiety and comfort around the decision-making process. How do you know you've made the right decision? Well, what did you do to get there? And usually you've made the right decision, but because of something beyond your control, it may not have worked out. So resulting in that book, actually, surprisingly, I didn't expect to get anything from that book, but I loved it and I read it, and you should read it too. It's a good book.
That's going to be in my
next. That's an awesome concept.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just ordered it. But I just love the concept, because it's true. We're so hard on ourselves about results when sometimes the results were out of our control, when even though we did make the right decision, as you said, with the information that we had present to us at the time, but we can't control all variables in every decision that we're making. And if you want to control all variables, you're going to live a very sheltered life and have very few opportunities in life. And I think that's the big thing, right? It is if you're trying to do big things and trying to make change in people's lives and add value to people's lives, you're going to have to take risks in your own life. And you can only calculate the risks so much, because even Einstein was, wrong a lot of times with a lot of his equations. So you can only calculate the risk so much and get it right. so many times unless you're taking small risks. And I think that's great, and being forgiving to yourself when things don't work out and being able to move on from that.
And also taking extreme
Love
ownership
it.
too, right? Also taking extreme ownership in those moments where you did contribute to it not working out, right? So
Yeah,
again,
100%.
the decision could have been a good one, but your execution of that decision could have been the problem too. But it's just like actually looking at it at that level is what I'm trying to say is the key factor here.
Yeah,
Ara,
makes a lot of sense.
this was freaking awesome. By the way, Ryan, did you just think of that Einstein thing, or have you heard that before?
No,
I think you just made it up, assuming it was.
I was like, this is.
I've heard that, like, all this stuff about Einstein, like making lots of mistakes and not being that, like, you know, he was a genius in some areas, but in lots of areas he wasn't. I've heard like that stuff before, and like, sure, I just made an assumption he made a mistake, but I think it was a safe
feeling it.
assumption
I was
to make.
like, yo, that seems like one of those like Instagram quotes. You know what I'm saying?
Like here's a quote you've never heard. Here's a quote you've never heard before. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. All right.
I love that. That's awesome. Ara, we want to be respectful of your time. I know you have another meeting. Thank you so much. If our audience
We appreciate
wants
you.
to find you, which they're definitely going to want to find you, where should they go to follow you and learn more about you?
Best place would be Instagram. At Ara Mamo, ARAMAMMO. And the Spring Team is the team, so it's springteam.ca. But if you want to really get a window into who I am and how we operate, Ara Mamo.
And if you're here and you're listening to this, you absolutely need to go follow him, because this is 1 hour, just 1 hour of how intelligent and valuable this man is. I'm sure you guys can see why the intro was what the intro was. Such a special human. So honored to have you on the show. Thank you for being here with us, man.
Thanks, guys. Love you. Later.
Love you.
Thanks
Ciao.
so much, Ara. Talk soon. Bye.